We are living, you, me, right now, through a very huge change in the entire world economy. There's many ways to explain it, but I'm going to summarize it this way. For most of the period since the end of the Second World War, so roughly since 1945, the United States was the one super powerful, rich capitalist country. All the others that might have been competitors, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, wrecked by the war. They came out of the war where all the bombs fell, where all the troops were killed, where everything was smashed. Other than Pearl Harbor, at the very beginning, no bombs fell in the United States. No factories were destroyed, no railway lines were destroyed, and we suffered many fewer casualties as a percentage of our people than any of those other countries did. Better, our economy was a disaster in the 1930s, the Great Depression, and it was the war that brought us out. So our economy was stronger at the end of that war than it had been. Whereas everybody else, the opposite, weaker than they had been. So we were king of the hill. The dollar became the global currency, could use it everywhere. Of course. The United States is 4.5% of the population of the world. We have 330 million people. It's about 4.5% of the population of the world. But we accounted in those years, the 50s, 60s, 70s, and all that, we accounted for a third or 40% or 50% of the total output of the world. Europe rebuilt itself, for those of you who know the history, because we lent them the money with which they could then buy the products we were ready to sell them. That was the period of the rising American empire. The previous empire, you all kind of know, the so-called British Empire, collapsed. India, remember, Mahatma Gandhi becomes independent. That was the great jewel of the crown of England, India. So they break away under Gandhi, 1947. It's the end for the British. It's the end for the French. All of those empires gone. Who replaces them economically? The United States. Nobody else can. And we made a fortune of money, and the American economy took off, and we lived in a country that persuaded itself that it wasn't these peculiar circumstances of the war. And no. Built into America is the exceptional quality. We work so hard, and we save our money, and there again we encounter that economic concept, bullshit. And how do we know? Because it's gone. It's never coming back. And that's very hard for all of you, whether you admit it to yourself, whether you're even conscious of yourself yet. I'm working hard to make you conscious of it. It's over. The American empire is in decline. And that shouldn't surprise anyone, because every other empire in the history of the human race has gone up and then it has come down. Why you would imagine this one would be the one great exception? You have to be even crazier than most of us are. It was never a question of whether. It was only a question of when, and when has arrived. Here are the clues. We lost the war in Vietnam, we lost the war in Afghanistan, we lost the war in Iraq, and we're in the process of losing it in Ukraine. Hint! What is that about? These are not just wars the United States lost, but let's be clear. The United States, one of the richest countries in the world, went to war in countries that are among the poorest in the world and were defeated. Oh my God, that's like the British arriving here in 1776 with their fancy equipment, and those colonial fellows with their muskets defeated them. Very hard on the British, very hard on us. Can't quite face that. When I give classes in large universities, which I still do, and I explain to my 18, 19-year-old students what I just told you, they look at me. They look at me the way a puppy does when it did something on the rug that it knows it shouldn't have done. Americans don't lose wars. They know that. How? Because that's our culture. When we lose them, we don't. We magically make that go away. We have a new world economy. We're not the top dog anymore. It's not that we're losing that position. We lost it. It's gone. Let me give you, because I'm an economist, some statistics, very brief, to chew on. The United States is part of a group of nations that are allied. Well, these days I have to qualify that. We're allied. They're called the G7. It's the United States, Canada, Japan, Britain, France, Italy, and Germany. That used to be the powerhouse center of the world in the second half of the 20th century. If you add up the total output of goods and services of the G7, the United States and its major allies, it amounts to about 28% of the total output of our planet. Now I'm going to mention another group, the People's Republic of China and their allies, who have a name. It's called the BRICS, B-R-I-C-S. That was originally 5 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And another 20 or so, or 18, have joined. That's another block. What is the total output of goods and services of the block of China and its allies, the BRICS? Answer, 35% of world output. That's already a much bigger economic unit than the United States and its major allies. It's over. We are not the center of the world economy the way we were. Every country in the world is rethinking its strategy. Political, economic, military, ideological. Every company in the world that has any international business is trying to figure out, what does this mean? When African countries these days are trying to figure out, where do we get the money to build the railroads that we need? They used to go to New York or London or Paris. They still go to New York, London, and Paris. But as soon as that trip is over, they go to New Delhi, Beijing, and Sao Paulo. And they ask each of them, who's giving me the better deal? And they go with the better deal, which is why most of the railroads in Africa today are built by the Chinese. Why most of the ports emerging on the coasts of Latin America are Chinese. It's not just your underpants. It's everywhere. And there is no end of that in sight. The International Monetary Fund, a Western agency that cannot be accused of any leftism whatsoever, tells us that in the last year, 2024, the United States economy grew by 2.8%, which was better than all of the other G7 countries. The IMF tells us that China last year grew 5%, double the rate of the United States, and India, another member of the BRICS, grew 7%. In other words, the gap, which is already in favor of China, is growing even more in favor of China.